Thank you.
Okay, you're recording. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm calling the Town Services and Outreach Committee of the Town's Council to order. This is June 5, 2025, and it's now 2 minutes after 10 a.m. And I think that we have all members of the committee present. So we're going to proceed, and I just want to remind everybody that this meeting is being conducted via remote means according to the current rules under the state open meeting law, and members of the public are able to participate in the meeting by Zoom or telephone, and so we will proceed accordingly, and everybody should recognize that the meeting is being recorded. So I want to make sure that everybody can hear me and be heard. And so Bob Hegner, can you hear?
Present.
And Councilor Ryan?
I'm here.
Councilor Lord?
Present.
And Jennifer Taub?
Here.
Okay, so the committee is all set to go, and what we want to do is try and hold off a little bit on public comment. I had been advised that Tracy Zafian, who's not submitted comments, was going to try and join us for a few minutes. So I'm keeping an eye on the attendee list for that reason. And the town manager is going to be joining in a few minutes, and he has the Affordable Housing Trust Board of Trustees appointments that he would like to present to us. We have 3 sets of minutes, so maybe we should quickly get them out of the way so that we don't have to do that later. Has everybody had a chance to read them? They were posted in the packet that Athena put together for us. And so I open it up as to whether there are any comments on the minutes for April 17, May 1, or May 15 of 2025 as submitted in the packet. Seeing no suggestions or offers of comment, then I think it would be appropriate to, and I'm going to make a motion that we approve the minutes of April 17, May 1, and May 15, 2025 as submitted by the clerk of the council. Is there a second?
Second.
So are we ready to proceed for a vote? Jennifer?
I'm sorry. I raised my hand because I'll say after the vote. Tracy Zafian's having trouble logging in.
Oh, she is logged in now.
Okay.
So we'll go to.
Were you calling on me to vote though?
But yeah, I want to vote because we have a motion that's been made and seconded
Yes.
on the floor, and it'll be quick. So we'll go to a vote. Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Councilor Lord,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so it's unanimous. So with that item out of the way, I am going to open this up to public comment and ask that Tracy Zafian be brought into the meeting. And morning, Tracy.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi. So I appreciated your email earlier, and but I will not. I'll let you just present. So please go ahead.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I'm sorry. I know Andy, that you had asked and TSO had asked for feedback from TAC. You sent me that request on May 20th, but that was just a few weeks ago, and TAC was not able to meet last week to discuss it. So we do have an ongoing issue with TAC in terms of membership. We've had a vacancy since 2023, and we haven't had any new members appointed since 2022. And as of June, we will only have 2 members with current terms. So, but that's a separate issue. But I do appreciate you reaching out to TAC for comment. You know, TAC has always been supportive of creating the TPC, particularly because there's been a lot of questions and there's been uncertainty both from TAC and from counselors about what is the role of TAC, you know, with this new form of government. So we do hope that the council can move forward in creating the TPC sooner than later. I thought that the proposal, I mean, you sent the proposal as well as the draft changes to the town council policy regarding the control and regulation of public ways and the draft charge. I mean, they all look pretty good to me. I do have some comments. I'll kind of go through the main ones, and I apologize. I had meant to send something in writing earlier and I didn't get to it, but I can send something later today, but I will summarize them briefly now. So regarding the, a few kind of more of the substantive comments, like regarding the policy about when public hearings are required. So there are certain things in the policy as proposed that that the Transportation Parking Commission would have control over to make decisions. And the way I read the language is it does talk about like when requests are received for these items that the TPC will hold public hearings. So one thing I think it's important to consider is whether all requests that are received are considered equally, or that whether there's whether you have to beat a certain bar in the request that's made for it to advance to public hearing. Because I mean, it will be great to have all the requests that come in. I know the town manager receives requests, the counselors receive requests, DPW receives requests. And one thing I didn't see in the policy that, the proposal that you drafted, but I also know the police receive requests, right? And a lot of times these different departments are weighing in, or different individuals are weighing in on how things should proceed, and not everybody's on the same page. But it does seem that, like, for example, I mean, there are many, many requests that come in overall, but I would not assume that all of them should go to a public hearing, that there should be either, counselors who are supporting it, or members of the TPC who are supporting it, or a certain number of neighbors who are supporting it, or something to kind of bring it up to the level where we have to have a public hearing on it, because otherwise I would be concerned. We do want to have transparency, but we don't have to have a hearing on all of those items, particularly the ones that are the most problematic or that have the least support. So just in the name of efficiency, I hope that you'd consider that. The other thing is in the town council policies, it would be helpful to have some clarifications about just in terms of road signs. Like there's a section that deals with the placement of road signs that says that the town manager, that the town council has delegated the authority on the placement of road signs to the town manager. I know that the town manager, does consult with DPW on those placements, but given that the TPC will be a body of experts, not just from DPW, but also safety, planning, and so on, like I would hope that the TPC could have some advisory recommendation role before the town manager acts on that. And one thing that's come up in my mind too is that currently with crosswalks and crosswalk signage, that the placement of the flashing beacons, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, is considered part of the signage. So it is completely under the town manager's domain about which crosswalks received those flashing lights. And again, I think just given the expertise of the TPC, that would be something it'd be good to get TPC's input on. And also there's another section in the policy, section 3G, about other signs in the public way. And it also talks about, section 3G also talks about how the TPC has control over deciding when speed limits should be modified and things. I just wanted some clarification about which signs are considered the road signs and which signs are considered other signs. And if the TPC has a role of modifying the speed limit, does the modification and not the placement of the signs. It seems like they all kind of go together. Because I know like in certain parts of town, right, a lot of speed limit signs may be missing, or it doesn't really matter where they're located to in terms of like the bigger safety picture. The last comment with the policy is also, I didn't see any language in there about bike lanes. I know that bike lanes may not be considered that permanent, but I think it is important to be deliberate and think about safety in terms of where bike lanes are placed. And I would hope that the TPC would have a recommendation role, at least in that as well. In terms of the proposal, I thought it looks great overall. I think there's some great ideas in it. And as I said, that TAC has always supported having TPC for efficiency, transparency, and so on. One thing is, I thought it was interesting that, again, and I just mentioned this too, that in terms of how these parking and transportation issues come up to DPW and the town manager and the counselors, they also do come up to the police, as I was saying. And in some cases, the police have weighed in, and then the residents will say, well, the police told us X, but DPW told us Y. So I would just acknowledge that the police also have a say in that. And then the idea about having a clear process about how that all requests come into the same place and they're dealt with, you know, like a ticket system type something where the requesters understand the process and how it advances. And, you know, if there is a criteria for what gets public hearings and what doesn't, that could be part of that as well. I mean, that's all fabulous stuff, and we should definitely be doing that. And I think that would be helpful and be less frustrating to people. I know as a TAC chair, occasionally people have reached out to me, and I'm sure counselors have the same experience, where then when they have an item of concern, like they want it addressed right away, and maybe it isn't at the top of the priority list, or, I mean, there's, you know, there's funding issues and other priorities. And so we can't do everything. Counselors can't do everything. Town can't do everything. And just so that people can understand that. So I hope that when that structure is created by the TPC or by the TPC with administrative support, that people sort of understand that, yes, we can hear, the TPC can hear these requests, but like not everything is equal. And you need to keep those like bigger framework in mind. And in that regard too, on the policy, it does talk about how the draft policy, it says the TPC may make recommendations on its own initiative, particularly involving bike ped safety, safe routes to school, and other matters related to complete streets. But I would sort of argue that, I mean, we have these guiding comprehensive documents, including the transportation policy, the master plan, there's the climate action plan. And so any of those could be things that the TPC, as time allows, that perhaps they could also, of their own initiative, maybe promote some of them, or work with some of the other committees to promote, you know, less single occupancy vehicle car trips or like other types of things. So I think it is important just to frame it is that it's not just bike ped safety. Like the original TAC was originally Public Transportation and Bike Committee, but it's about transportation comprehensively. So to kind of just have that in people's mind that where it's not just bike and peds. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I liked the idea that, and this is at the end of the proposal, is that if the TPC makes a recommendation to the council, that the TSO recommendations will not be referred to a council committee. I think that that's good. You don't want to be going back and forth and have have those items come before too many committees, but it does really need to clarify. And I know it's mentioned that the charge of TSO would have to be revised, but really to just be clear about, and hopefully counselors will agree about when councils or should be weighing in and when it should be, even on the recommendation side, you know, when they should mainly be deferring to the TPC unless I think that's not appropriate. And I think that's why the Northampton TPC, which is mainly recommendation, but it seems to work very smoothly. And I don't think there, when the TPC makes recommendations to the council, that there's a lot of, you know, detailed questioning of what the TPC is proposing, because they've already gone through these procedures. So those are my main comments, and I can share some of it in writing too, if that's helpful.
Well, thank you very much. It is helpful. And I'll let you know after today's meeting how far we go and whether it's worth taking time I know it's unusual for me to do this, but since you're here in the role, oh, did you removed her from the room already?
I can bring her back. It's okay.
Um, not the Indy.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. It, hi, Tracy. Is
Yeah,
that-
hi. Yeah,
Whether, I just wanted to see if there were any other members of the committee who want to ask any quick follow-up questions. I know you have to get back to your other
yeah, it's
responsibilities
really
today.
unfortunate. I mean, I realize that this is a good time for the TSO members and things, but ever since the TSO meeting time was changed to during the day, I really do struggle to attend, especially because I have a work meeting every Thursday at 10 a.m. So, but sure, if there's any quick questions, I can try and answer
Yeah,
them,
so I
but-
guess I will open it up if there's any quick questions, recognizing that Tracy is under time limit, which is why I was trying to get her in early. Seeing that, Tracy, thank you. I will send
Right.
you an email later in the day, to let you know what happened in today's meeting.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming.
And thank TSO for working on this so hard. All right.
So thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to offer public comment at this time? Seeing none, I guess we'll go back to the meeting as a whole and in their effort to try and get other things out of the way, whether we can take up the town manager appointments to the Affordable Housing Trust Board of Trustees. Paul, are you
Yep.
ready to?
Yep, thank you, Andy. So there are 4 names I've appointed and up for your review. The trust is an unusual committee in that all the terms are 2-year terms. So they only serve 2 years at a time. So you see there's a lot of different names coming up. We have a lot of people going off of the trust this year. So we have really strong candidates coming on. So the first 2 are Rob Allingham, who you may know because he works at the Amherst Business Improvement District as their marketing and communications manager. And he's been interested in serving. He lives on Main Street and has been interested in getting involved in the town for a long time. And then Hee-Jae Kim is a resident who's moved to town Bob Pomeroy moved to town after being in Japan for 25 years. He is one of these folks who went to graduate school and wanted to relocate to Amherst towards his semi-retirement, and has a lot of skills in terms of building and managing campuses and things like that. So he was interested in serving as well. Hee-Jae Kim is a person who's relatively new to town, chose to live in Amherst, moving here from Cambridge, and wants to apply his really incredible skill set, but not a whole lot on affordable housing, but it recognizes affordable housing as a real need for the town, but is good on data management and strategic planning and things like that. Carla Rash is an interesting person because she is a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner who works with a lot of folks who have been hospitalized, sometimes involuntarily, and recognize that, and is part of the Emmanuel Lutheran Church, which is the home of Craig Storrs, and has been pretty directly involved with that relationship between the church and Craig Storrs, and just really emphasize how important housing was when people are being released, and that when that level of infrastructure is needed, and wanted to make sure that kind of emphasis was maintained by the trust. And then Jara Smith is, it's like one of these people that Amherst is famous for, who has, moved to town, really excited about living in the town. He's a professional housing consultant with a specialization in affordable housing trusts. So, like, that is such a niche thing. And then you have someone who's a country, state nationwide expert on it. So these are 5 really strong people who will be joining the trust with your approval.
So I have one question though, and so open it up for others. So you had a good group, it seems, that is involved in helping you with the interview process.
Hmm.
And how would you, did you receive any feedback that, or I guess maybe let me restate it.
Hmm.
Was it clear through the process and their participation that the role of the Housing Trust has been adequately explained to all members who are you're suggesting for appointment, and whether they all understand what the trust has been doing and what the role of the trust is?
Sure. Yeah, so typically what we do is we introduce ourselves, whoever's the chair. So in this case, it was Gaston. They describe what the trust does in a very few minutes, and they describe the time commitment and the expectations and the types of things that they're working on. Typically, the person from the Resident Oversight Board asks about, have you watched any meetings? Have you attended any meetings? What do you know? Like just to gauge if the person has really expressed some kind of interest in the particular committee that we're interviewing for. We get a lot of people who check every box, and we just want to know, are you showing some interest in this particular committee? And every one of these people said, yes, I've been to their meetings, or I've watched them, or I've read their minutes, or usually all of them. So yeah, so we do explore with them their interest in this particular committee, but also try to help them understand for the trust, it was explained to them that there's monthly meetings, but there's also a subcommittee structure, which there's an expectation that trust members will serve on a subcommittee that's just another meeting. So basically 2 meetings a month with about 45 minutes of prep time in advance of those meetings. And the trust meetings are pretty precisely completed in 2 hours. If they go beyond, they never go beyond 2 hours. The chair really drives those meetings to be ending them within 2 hours.
So any questions? Thank you. That's very helpful. Any questions or comments from other members of the committee? Seeing none, we have a motion. George, Councilor Ryan.
So I'm prepared to move that TSO recommend that the town council approve the following town manager appointments to the Affordable Housing Trust Board of Trustees for 1-year terms to expire June 30, 2026, Robert Ollingham and Bob Pomeroy, and for 2-year terms to expire June 30, 2027, Hee-Jae Kim, Carla Rash, and Jara Smith.
Second. Whoever.
Okay, so the motion is made by Councilor Ryan, seconded by Jennifer Taub. Any discussion on the motion before we proceed to a vote? Seeing no requests, then we'll proceed to a vote. Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Councilor Ryan.
Aye.
Councilor Lord.
Aye.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so it is unanimous. Paul, thank you. And
Thank you.
we hope you use the opportunity to also talk to our person who's lived in Japan about how important we think our sister city relationship is.
Already did.
Good. Appreciate it. So we should get back to the main agenda item of the day. And because we've taken care of minutes, so we've taken care of town manager appointments and public comment. Councilor Ryan, you had a suggestion that you made about how to proceed to organize the discussion today. I was wondering also as to whether we needed to think about just assembling a list of the issues that have been identified through comment So what is your suggestion? Do you want to present it to the committee?
Well, we have some revisions to the two documents that the committee members have had a chance to look at, I hope, but we should probably go through them in detail just to make sure that we understand them and if we have any questions or concerns. And then we also saw copies of, I think, Counselor Haneke's and Counselor Shane's comments, and I thought that I identified about at least 8 or 9 specific larger issues. Many of Counselor Haneke's, or some of Counselor Haneke's comments were specific to language, and we'll go through that if we do that first. And then I thought we would, if it meets your approval and the committee wants to do it, we'd go through their larger issues. Things like size of committee, what criteria, if any, should the resident members have, et cetera. There were about 7 or 8 at least that were raised. Not that we're going to necessarily resolve them today, but that we should at least mention them. And if people have thoughts on it one way or the other, I thought also it would be a good preparation for the discussion that will eventually take place at the council. So I'd start with detail and then go to the larger issues given the time that remains, is my suggestion.
Okay. I should note just that there was one additional email that came in this morning, very shortly prior to the meeting. I got to the point where I just couldn't keep sending them out, but it was very simple. It was from Council President Griesmer, who is wanting to make sure that we were considering the cost to the town and staffing requirements. So she is in the audience and could make further presentation, but those were 2 issues that she wanted to make sure we considered. So, Councilor Ryan, you've been the master of the process all along. Were you thinking of putting on the screen your current version with all of the changes?
Well, I may be the master of the process, Andy, but I'm not a master of this damn computer. Excuse my French. So if either Athena or somebody can put the documents up on the screen, that would be appreciated, but it's beyond my limited technological capacities. I'm hoping members have copies of these documents accessible to them, but it would be nice to have it on the screen, but I don't have the capacity to do that. Partly because I'm in my man cave and I can't get to my big computer. But anyway, if somebody can do that, that'd be great. I can't.
Yeah, no, Athena, can you do that? And then I'll, do you need me to try and do that?
I don't have things pulled up right now. It would take me a few minutes to get them up. Do you want me to try and do that, Andy, or do you want to go ahead?
If you can, I appreciate it.
And which one would you like first?
We're going to start with the committee, the draft charge of the committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Please go continue your conversation. I'll try and get that out.
So these are largely word changing, but there's one addition that the committee needs to look at and see if it's happy with or not happy with. The first one is under the purpose statement. And Councilor Haneke pointed out that, of course, the TPC is not just making decisions, at least under this current version, it's also making recommendations. So I thought this was a small change, but I added the word recommendation. This is the second sentence under the purpose section. It reads, to achieve this purpose, TPC shall review, and then I insert, make recommendations and have authority to approve requests related to the public ways as delegated to the TPC by the town council. So I thought that was meant to address that concern. It's a small one, but that was the language that I suggested. And then I put in another sentence, which perhaps is a bit more, is somewhat different, but it starts out with the idea of transportation concerns. So it says, now, in addition, it shall be consulted on transportation concerns such as proposed traffic and parking related bylaws and policies, and then language inserted, and matters involving pedestrian and bike safety. So people need to think about that. Maybe it's too specific. Maybe it's not specific, or maybe it needs to be broader. Anyway, so those were changes to that section in the current draft, partly based on Councilor Haneke's points, but also based on my thoughts. So thoughts on that? So inserted to make recommendations, then you can see that the original language simply says requests related to public ways delegated to TPC by town council. Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, I think the only question I have is where it says it shall be consulted on transportation. It's like by whom?
Mhm.
In the previous, it said by the town council or town manager, but it's sort of vague in terms of who's supposed to consult. So you might just want to say, where is the originating? At what point do you want to be, should the TPC be consulted?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that last phrase, you might want to keep it, so you know what the province is of the consultation.
I mean, one of the thoughts that's come up in some of the comments that we've heard, both in today and also in writing, is that this body is more than just about pedestrian bike safety. That's a comment that Tracy made. It's a comment also that Councilor Haneke's made. I think Councilor Shane also raised that in her comments. So one thought that I had after I looked at this is maybe this is too specific. Maybe we need to just, I mean, there is language later in this document that we will get to under the section called "In addition, the TPC shall," and believe there's language there. Yes, but it has to do with the idea of being a forum for concerns. This is specific to it being consulted. The thought is that it should be consulted by somebody on matters of particularly pedestrian and bike safety. But is that too narrow? Should it also include, because the other issues related to transit and vehicle safety? And I don't know. Obviously, this reflects my prejudice or bias or my perspective, and the sort of history of TAC, which has largely been concerned historically with pedestrian and bike safety issues. This body has a broader remit, and I think that's right. And that also includes transit safety and vehicular safety issues. And I think the idea that it would be a forum for people to come and express concerns about it makes sense to me, and we'll come to that in a minute in this document. But at this point, under the purpose section, I felt that personally that it should emphasize particularly pedestrian bike safety, but maybe that's, I don't know, this is a.
Yeah, I think my point, George, I think there's two things. One is by whom?
Yes.
Does the planning board consult with them? Does I think that this committee is only working on public ways. It doesn't have a jurisdiction beyond public ways because that's the council's jurisdiction. And B, I think the only people who have a role in public ways are the town council and the town manager. So I think that's having that last phrase, retaining that last blue blocked out phrase might make sense, because otherwise it might be confusing for private developers. Do I need to go to this committee or not? Or someone might say they should have gone to this committee because it says you shall be consulted. This committee shall be consulted. It's a shall.
It shall, right?
So I think that it might. I'm just trying to eliminate any confusion that might
No.
happen.
Good. So if we kept that stricken phrase as requested by.
Yeah. I would keep that.
Um, Thoughts by anyone else on this? I'm sorry.
I was going to ask if there's anybody who disagrees with that change. Jennifer?
I don't disagree, but was trying to get back to Kathy Shane's suggestion because she had specifically had the one that spoke about roundabouts and she got very specific. I don't know if that would go here, but
I think it's too specific here, but it does come up in the policy document, which we'll get to in a minute. I think here we want to be broad brush, which again was my initial thought that maybe because of my bias and also my sense of this history of TAC, that we should give special mention to pedestrian and bike safety. So that's why I put it in. But it's correct that this body will deal with much broader issues than that. But whatever language is in this document should be pretty broad, I think.
yeah, I'm fine with it.
Well, we can come back to this, but these are the changes at the moment. And what I'm hearing, and without any objection at the moment, is that we should insert then as requested by the town council or the town manager. So it's clear by whom they should be consulted.
We can just reject that deletion.
Okay. Thank you. The next change comes under the in addition, the TPC shall section, the bullet points. And I've inserted, okay, this shows, oh, unfortunately, yeah, this has all been deleted. So that's just right. So in this section, there's inserted a new bullet point, which we should talk about. Provide, so the TPC shall make recommendations. It shall support town staff, shall advise the town council and town manager on matters related, da, 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 da. I thought, that's why I inserted this, it should also be a forum or a place for residents to express concerns about matters related to bike, pedestrian, transit, and vehicle safety in town. So I inserted that, but we haven't talked about it. So some thoughts on this. Bob?
Yeah, I agree. We need to put somewhere in here that that we envision this TPC as being the one place to go for all questions or concerns about. I wouldn't limit this to bike and pedestrian safety. I would, related to traffic, transportation, etc.
Okay, so yeah, the language here actually, Bob, is not quite correct, and this may reflect a change that was made after Andy got this. But that language actually should read, provide a forum for residents to express concerns about matters related to bike, comma, strike and, pedestrian, comma, transit, comma, and vehicle safety in town.
Okay, yeah, I have that in my hard copy.
Yeah, okay, so we may be looking at a slightly, that's all right, but yeah, it's
That's
the
okay.
current, and that's based on language actually that was a point that Councillor Haneke raised, I think also maybe Councillor Shane, and I thought that was absolutely, but the idea is it's a forum, it's a place for people to go, if people are comfortable with that. Jennifer?
Bob,
sorry.
the only thing I would say is let's make this even stronger. The forum, not a forum, but the forum. That that we want to direct all requests or all concerns to the TPC. We don't want them to go to police and DPW and the council and everything.
So when those do go to them, which they will be they will understand that it's to be redirected to TPC.
Correct.
Okay, we could change A to provide the forum. Jennifer?
And can we add on street, or just parking concerns? Because again, it comes up.
This is safety. This is about safety.
But if it's
Yeah.
I'm reading that as this is the forum for residents to come for all these, but parking is an issue. That where would, so where would residents
mhm.
go with that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think they would come to this body for that.
Why isn't it just in that bullet? That's what
You'd like to add it to this.
Yeah, I agree. We should add parking in there.
So foster public awareness on the safe use, I'm sorry, provide the forum for residents to express concerns about matters related to bike, pedestrian transit, and vehicle safety. Trying to see where to put it. Could be related to parking, comma.
Yeah, parking.
she did.
Athena's already done it, George, on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, she's working with a slightly, yeah, I just, go ahead, that's fine.
This is the version that was in the packet, George.
No, I know, it's not,
Okay.
I know, I understand, I understand. I have so many versions of this on my computer now. Okay. Okay, so insert parking.
George, I'm editing the one that's in the SharePoint packet, so if you want it after the meeting, you could download this, and that's the
No,
most recent.
thank you very much. Okay. Other thoughts before we go? So there's one other change that we need to look at under criteria for decision making. And after I did this, so Councilor Haneke felt this should be stricken. And I did not agree, but that's a larger concern that she raised, though, I mean, it's not larger in a sense, it's related to the language of this document. I thought that it was appropriate that we list, at least in broad brush, the kinds of documents and policy statements that the town has. I don't think this is exhaustive, but it's just her point was there's no way we can list them all. I think, in fact, we can come pretty close. And I think this comes pretty close. And I felt it was important that it be here. So I did not I did not accept that proposal, though she could make it at council. So I left it in, but I did change the wording, and actually upon rereading it again, right now it reads criteria for decision making, recommendations. It's just a statement and recommendations of the town's transportation plan, right? That's what the original document read. I wanted a statement so I could make sense of it. So I changed it to recommendations should include consideration of. It occurs to me, of course, that at least at the moment they're doing more than recommending. So I was going to make a further suggestion, my apologies, but the language would be something like in its deliberations or in conducting its deliberations, TPC should include considerations of, and then the rest of the language would stay as written. So the change is meant, first of all, to be a statement so that people understand what it's actually saying, which I understood it to say that when you are deliberating about either recommendations or decisions, please take into consideration the following policies and plans. So in conducting its deliberations, TPC should include consideration of, and I think it's. And then the rest is stricken. Thank you. And then I inserted the phrase, and any other plans or policies adopted by the town involving transportation issues. Councilor Haneke, in her comment, suggested there might be other policies, some of which have not yet been created and may never be created, but there are things that she's concerned about. So what I did was I used broad language just to suggest that, if we have future policies about streetlights or, whatever, that we would expect them to take that under advisement when they're doing their deliberations. So it's a bit boilerplatey, but Jennifer.
Yeah, Councilor Haneke had also talked about lithium batteries, which I don't see how that's in any way in the purview of this body.
No, again, I did not,
Yeah.
again, if she can bring that up in council, you guys read it. If you want to make a case for lithium batteries or for, the lighting, what was it, the lighting policy that but I felt that, if at some point the town should adopt policies that somehow affect transportation. But, so that's what I'm suggesting here. And then that's it for this document.
We'll handle the two things that Councilor Haneke raised separately, and I'm going to start with lighting. And I do think that there's a crossover and it's a complicated issue. But I want to start by pointing out that in before all of you were on TSO in the final year that trying to think who all was on it at the time. One was Anna and Devin, the other, Pam, Dorothy Pam was on it at the time. We spent a lot of time considering a proposal for a lighting policy. And it was a really complex issue that at the end became one that really required that the staff consider making a proposal first. And so it was left at the end of that council term that the town manager and the superintendent of public works propose a policy, and I don't think that it's ever moved forward beyond that. But there were a lot of issues with lighting, and lighting becomes a problem for transportation because some people feel that, and I think they're correct, that the crosswalks that are in dark areas don't have a problem because somebody could be in the crosswalk and just not be seen by the driver because of darkness issues. So there are people who feel that we should be attentive to lighting as a transportation safety issue, having for that reason. Councilor Ryan.
So it seems this document addresses that. This says that those kinds of issues are perfectly welcome to be brought to TPC under the broad concern of pedestrian safety. And, if they have any recommendations or thoughts about it, they can weigh in. So I don't see why lighting, lighting gets mentioned later in the policy document. We can talk about that in a minute. But I think this document covers it. Jennifer? Yeah.
Hey, Jennifer.
I would agree, I guess, if we want, to include lighting to the extent that it, as you said, Andy, it impacts traffic and pedestrian safety. But I think that Councilor Haneke also talked about included it insofar as it's bothersome to people in their homes. And I don't think that should be within the purview of this body.
I think we're back into the where we were. TSO was stuck before you all were on TSO. That there was a feeling that we should be moving forward with policy, but it just hasn't moved forward. We may need to come back to that and invite those two counselors who were the co-sponsors of the original proposal.
But I don't think it may come back to TSO, but I don't think
Right.
it would be referred to
I
this.
don't think it's
No, it would not. No.
Yeah, I don't think it's part of this.
It's not a
As far as
safety
the
net.
lithium batteries is concerned, need to know a little bit more about that. But my reading of it was that she was concerned about things like placement of the bicycle charging stations and the Valley Bikes stations, because they may involve lithium batteries, and that it is a consideration to make sure that it's being put in a safe place. I have no idea as to whether that is something that is a major concern. I think that it would probably be coming under the purview of the of Stephanie Ciccarello and her department as to whether they're recommending a bike station for a location. I think that the probable way it would work is that a recommendation would be made to place a bike station at a specific location that is in the public way, and whether that should be played, that if that is something that is then going to be considered in the committee, that the committee ought to be considering all issues. But what can you say? I don't know.
So I would like to, assuming that everyone is happy, or at least can approve the language changes that we've made to this document, I would like to make a motion that we approve those changes, approve this document as amended, and request that it be sent to GOL.
So have you made that motion, or
I've just made the motion, yes.
I'll listen for a second. Jennifer?
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I would second it. I had raised my hand because there were still other comments. I think like Counselor Haneke had questioned the composition of the
That's
members.
true. That's true. But again, and so maybe perhaps I should wait. My feeling is that those kinds of issues will not affect the language of this document. And perhaps it's presumptuous of me, but I don't think that this committee is going to change that, but it's something we should at least note and discuss. So maybe I should wait until we've had that discussion and then make this motion. So you make a good point, Jennifer, that, I mean, because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll turn out that 3 of my colleagues want to change the number of people, or they want to, so perhaps I should wait until we get through those larger issues. But I would like at some point today, if possible, to get both documents possibly to the point where they can go out to GOL. But you're right, maybe that's premature at this point. So I withdraw my motion, and maybe we should move on to the next document.
Before we do that, Jennifer actually did point out something that is significant we should discuss, and that is there anybody who would like to comment on on Councilor Haneke's suggestions regarding the composition of the committee, or the commission? Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, I stand by, and still support the composition that, we were recommending. And I think there was some concern expressed on her part about having town staff. I mean, would be such a rethinking of this board. We met with the representatives from Northampton, and I think we've given a lot of time and consideration. So, personally, I'm comfortable with the composition of this board as we've discussed and how we were recommending it. So, again, I think if we were not going to have town staff on it, and maybe even not to have counselors, that's just almost taking us back to square one. I don't know how others feel.
Yeah, I agree with you. The side issue that she is raising, and I know this because I did have actually a conversation with her afterwards, after receiving the document. And she's raised an appropriate question, which is broader than the creation of this commission. And that is that there's so many committees that and so many assignments that are being asked of us as counselors, including liaisons to other committees that came up at the most recent council meeting, and serving on 2 standing committees. And she's, pointing out that we're adding another set of responsibilities for counselors. So that was part of what her concern is. And I do think it is something that the GOL should be talking about, but for the purpose of creating a commission that is functional, I stand by the inclusion of counselors. And the other question that comes up under counselors, then I'm going to go back to Jennifer, is that I think it was Kathy who raised the question about designating both members and not leaving the council to at least be able to pick one member. She did.
Yeah, I think that, I'm going to step in here for a moment, Jennifer, and I apologize, but I think I was going to leave this discussion till later, but since we're in it, why don't we just do it? 2 counselors have already expressed reservations about having the vice president designated, and I'm wondering if we should just, they seem acceptable with the FinCom person, and maybe the second counselor should just be chosen by the council. Jennifer, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Jennifer.
No, I agree with that. And then, so I agree with that. And then I would, responding to Andy, yeah, in terms of if part of the concern was having counselors on this commission, that it was, the time burden. I think that a lot of what TSO, a certain amount of what TSO addresses and gets referred to us are parking and transportation. So I think by that being taken off the plate of TSO, in some ways that's unburdening, so to speak, the council of a whole. So we're kind of taking off the council and putting on TSO. So I don't see it as being burdensome for the 2 counselors that would be serving on TSO. And I agree that if the council recommends someone from the council, recommends a member to the town manager, that person will have agreed that they have the time and the bandwidth to serve. So I think it's important that 2 counselors be on, and but I agree if one is how we choose representatives to the budget coordinating, we're always picking representatives to other bodies. I was also Councilor Haneke was also concerned that the residents not have to have a particular expertise, I think, in parking and transportation. And I don't know, how do people feel about that? Because often it seems like, sometimes we say they should have expertise and sometimes they shouldn't. And then it starts to seem a little, you can just sort of personally apply those qualifications to the candidates that you want to serve. I think we should have some objective criteria, and I think that's what we were getting at, was saying they have, they don't have to be professional parking management experts, but that I was surprised at the objection to our to that part of what we were recommending.
I would agree. I think she can raise that at council if she wishes. I don't think there's any, I think the list we have here is perfectly reasonable and is not that narrow. And so I don't see any reason to change it. I don't know how others feel.
I agree.
Yeah. May I go back for a moment? And again, people can speak up if but since we're doing it this way, the composition currently reads 2 town councilors, chair of finance, committee or designee. And then it sounds like I'm going to propose and one member to be, is it chosen or recommended? I'm not sure what the right verb is, but to be
It's
chosen.
recommended to Paul.
Right, exactly. Thank you. So to be recommended by the town council. I'm going to suggest that change. So two town council, chair finance committee or designee, and one member to be recommended by the town council. Or maybe one other member. I don't know. Obviously both will be recommended. So one of them will be someone from finance and the other will be a second member or another member, one member to be recommended. I'm not sure how to word that. Somebody can,
I think it's what
and a second member and a
did you
second
see
member.
what she put on the what Athena wrote. I think that Athena covers it well.
Fine, good. So I'm going to propose that change of language. Thoughts about that? I mean, I wanted VP originally simply because I personally find many of these, long, uh, choice type things take up a lot of time. And but that's life, I guess. So rather than, I thought just make the vice president and whoever the vice president is, that's just considered one of their duties. But there seems to be a lot of, at least two counselors object to it already. I'm not sure how enthusiastic people on this committee are. So the suggestion is let's just make it a choice. Bob?
Yeah, I agree with that. I was gonna just bring up the term of appointment. And I think there was a comment that counselors only have a 2-year term. So that creates a problem if someone is not reelected or chooses not to run again. And so maybe that isn't an issue. I mean, that issue we'll just deal with as as it happens. But we may
So
want
the
to.
idea is, Bob, that every year the council will just make the appointment, but it would only, so the councilors will only serve for 1 year. And they could possibly be reappointed, but maybe not. Does that need to be mentioned under composition? And that's just a technical question. I mean, your point is that they're only going to serve for 1 year, unlike the other members who will be serving for 3 years.
Or they may serve for 2 years and then.
Exactly, if they get reappointed.
Right.
But so if the language said something like two town councilors and one member to be recommended by the town council, well, maybe just leave it like that.
Yeah, leave it. It's fine. I think we'll just deal with it.
Yeah.
When the need arises.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, this is where it gets.
I think most people would resign from the committee anyway, or the commission, if they were not reelected.
Well, it does raise the question, doesn't it? What actually does this charge mean? We're not actually appointing counselors for 3-year terms. We're appointing them for at most, well, really, because the council every year goes through these. I guess the question is, what are we appointing them? What's the length of term? And it's not the same as the, any thoughts here? This is technical. I don't know. Jennifer?
Well, Bob just said if the counselor didn't run again or was no longer on the council, that they would probably step down. I mean, I would say they would have to step down because they're only serving in their capacity as a counselor.
So is the assumption that the term is 3 years, and if they last 3 years, fine, and if they don't, they don't?
Yeah, or they
does that
may
mean
want to, they may find that their schedule.
Unelected. I say, no, you can't vote me out because I'm on the.
No.
Can't use that argument. Paul, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think so most of the positions, police, superintendent, planning, and counselors are all there because of the nature of their role.
Right.
So if you roll off the council, you're no longer on. So I wonder if we don't even put a time limit on them, because that's whoever the chief is the person. We're not going to say appoint for 3 years, I don't think. I mean, you could look at it either way, I guess. But you could just sort of say ex officio for all those certain ones, and then
for For the residents, it's 3 years. I mean, the main thing is the
Definitely,
residents are
it's
3
the
years.
residents for 3 years. Yeah, I was wondering if you
And
want to
then the
separate the
others are
two.
ex officio. You want to just say?
That's what I'm thinking.
And I don't know how to word that. Maybe Athena can help us at some point, but the thought is that everyone else is ex officio, but the residents for 3 years.
But you can maybe put something under the counselors, appointed, is the council appoints annually for the
Yes, we
committees
do.
like this?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I
Right.
wonder if under terms of appointments, we need to just write up in the top section, say something like,
3 years for residents. Yeah. Residents, 3 years, and all other members ex officio.
3 years, others, other members serving.
Ex officio. Why not? Is that acceptable language?
I'm excited just to see what Athena's going to put in.
I was gonna make a suggestion and George keeps saying words, so I'm trying to decide if I should
like
write
to
what
speak.
George's
I
writing.
love-
or-
It's
I'm
exciting.
I hate silence. We gotta fill the silence here. Go ahead, please, Athena.
And just a reminder, GOL will look at this too, so if this doesn't,
That's a good point.
That's fine. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I mean, it's not really permanently, it's
well, it's by virtue of their office, right?
by
Mhm.
virtue of their office.
Which is ex officio. So just that I think is sufficient. Other members ex officio.
Ex officio while eligible or something, I don't know.
No, it's just by virtue of their office. Right.
Mhm.
Anyway, GOL can sort of play with it too.
But we still have to go through the appointment process, just to be clear, like every year I give you the list, and the Commission on Disabilities, would be that's the only one that's a bit of an outlier. That person would serve for 3 years, you would hope. Unless you want them to appoint every year.
Well, let's give GOL something to do.
Let GL do, yeah, good point.
Yeah,
You know, that's we can't do everything. We can't do everything.
I
All right,
mean,
well, this is
count-
not the approach I wanted to take, but it's all right. We're stuck in it anyway. But she also points out staff shouldn't have a voting role. Anyone want to take that one on? I don't, but does anyone have any thoughts?
I don't want to take that one on because I think that we agree that all of us agree that purpose of the commission is that everybody is
Right.
who's on the commission is participating fully.
Yeah.
But on the composition section with terms,
Yep.
I wonder if we should say in one member that the member of the Commission on Disabilities serves for by year for 1 year, and let them reappoint every year, or make a recommendation every year. How do you want to handle that?
I think they're gonna let GOL handle that.
Okay. So should we go on to the other document, or do we?
Well, at this point, then I'd like to make my motion. I mean, I really would like to get this thing out the door. Okay. Unless people feel strongly that we need to chew on it even more, which is, if we do, we do. But we've gone through it now with all the comments that have been presented to us related to the language of this document and to the wording and the meaning of the document. And I'd like to get it to GOL, which means we have to say, at the moment, where we find it acceptable and we want to have it moved on. So I'm going to again make the motion that we approve this document as amended today and that it be sent to GOL for review.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion, requests? Otherwise, we'll proceed to a vote. Then we proceeding to a vote. Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Councilor Lord, Councilor Lord. We'll come back to that. Jennifer,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Councilor Lord may have stepped away. So why don't we just go ahead and say at the moment it's 4-0 with one member not participating in the vote and are temporarily absent. So we can go on to the other document. So I guess we want to switch over and focus now on the council policy on public ways.
So again, the changes that are in this document reflect a conversation that Andy and I had with Paul and with Guilford, in addition to comments we got from Councilor Haneke. And so once it's up on the screen, we can go through it.
And as I reported earlier to you, just repeated with everybody present during the meeting that Superintendent Mooring had suggested a list of things that the commission could make decisions on, and is suggesting that in thinking about it later, we also include school zones and safety zones. So I want to make sure that that gets noted and added in.
Andy, I have to step away in about 5 or 10 minutes, so I can share screen until then, but I'll need to hand things over.
Okay, why don't we start for now to get it on the screen?
Okay.
I will.
And Andy, would you be able to scroll once Athena has to leave?
I'm looking to see if I have it up or if I have to go and reopen it
It's
in order to
things
get it
in
on
share
the screen by me.
If she makes you co-host, you should be able to, yeah?
I can fulfill that function if you want to continue chairing the meeting, Andy, if you send me the
Okay.
document that you're working on, Athena.
I'll do that.
And thank you.
Okay,
All right, the first, if we, we're in section 2, subsection D. So 2D, a change that's made here. This is thanks to Councilor Haneke's very keen legal eye. She noted that some of the language that I was using, we were using, doesn't correspond to language used elsewhere in the document. So some of these changes are just to make it in conformity with the way it's worded elsewhere. But there is a change here also that is something we need to talk about. So this is 2D, permanent or other requests. I'm just going to read it out loud while the screen matter gets put up. Requests for permanent parking changes, modification of fees, or other requests related to parking not detailed above. There's a list of things. The proposed language now reads, the town council retains its authority. So again, what she points out is following the language elsewhere in the document, it should make that statement. So the town council retains its authority as keeper of the public way provided, however, that prior to council action, the TPC may, not shall, may hold a public hearing on each request and shall make a recommendation to the town council on the request. So once that gets up on the screen, we can look at it in detail. But the point is, A, the language changes just to bring it in conformity with the rest of the document. But the key change in content, it relates also to something that Tracy Zaffian brought up earlier this morning. There should, and this is Councilor Haneke's point as well, TPC should have some discretion here. They don't have to hold a public hearing on every single thing. So that's why it's may.
Mhm.
So I think we would agree. Yeah, Jennifer, please.
I had a question, this is maybe more for Paul. Legally, is there anything that dictates when there has to be a public hearing? Or maybe it's just for housing and planning matters.
So there are times for like utility poles, that's the outlier. I don't think there might be, I don't think there are many others, honestly. But you know, unless you can put in language, unless required by law, we should usually put something in like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
So are folks seeing the document appropriately?
It needs to be, if you can zoom it a bit, that would be
Zoom
good.
it, okay.
Yeah, good luck.
See, testing my capacity here.
I know.
Is that any better?
Nope.
Does it do it? That
Nope.
doesn't do anything.
Ah, there you
There,
go.
there you
There you
go.
go. Perfect. And then you just have to scroll.
Okay,
Thank you, Paul.
look at me go.
I know. Don't give up your daytime
You're
job.
so totally
You might have some, you might have a future here. So we are in 2D, and if you can scroll down there, thank you, just a bit farther. There it
Yeah.
is. So as I read out loud a moment ago, the town council retains its authorities to keep the public way, blah, 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 blah. And it's May. Okay. If no further thought there, the next change comes in section 3C2, subsection 2. So 3C2, these are long-term closures. So again, short-term closures, number Roman 1, now small 1, now 2. For all other closures, again, the language is changed to conform. The town council delegates to the TPC authority to review all requests under this paragraph following consultation with the town engineer, police chief, fire chief, and town manager, and in compliance with applicable Mass General laws and regulations before making a recommendation to the council. So the language reflects, again, conformity with the rest of the document, but there is a policy issue here we need to touch on. Councilor Haneke, as I did, wanted this to stay with TPC. But I believe when we did this last time, and it's probably because I didn't agree with it, I can't remember why, but we decided, I believe, to require that go back to the council, even though it's not a permanent change. So with permanent changes, we always bring it to the council. For long and short-term closures, the thought was that it doesn't have to go to the council, but in this case, and some of you perhaps can remember, I mean, the example would be that what's happening with the library on Amity Street, or what happened with the apartment building on Spring Street. Those are two concrete examples of long-term closures, not permanent. And the language currently here would send this to the council with a recommendation from TPC. Councilor Haneke asked, why doesn't this just stay with TPC? My recollection is dim, but the thought was, given those two examples, some of us or all of us felt that somehow it should stay with the council. Can somebody help me here?
Bob,
Yeah, I think we we did. Don't remember the precise split, or if there was a split of opinion, but um, I do think that we were concerned about major closures, for like what's happening on Amity Street.
Right, with the library, right.
And it's the council should approve that, I think. Because and I think what I would add to this, though, is something on public hearing, the TPC authority to review all requests under this paragraph, and hold a public hearing as whatever, as they deem appropriate. And then
Bob, do you think the fact that it goes to the council, as at least the language currently states, would cover that aspect so that you wouldn't need to have a public hearing because it goes back to the council?
I think there's a question. I don't know if Guilford wants to weigh in on this, but I think that he had talked with us about us being George and I and Paul, about the fact that a lot of these decisions are made with heavy involvement of DPW, and that there's a fairly routine process. Guilford?
So you caught me kind of a little asleep there, sorry. What project on Amity Street were you talking about?
The library.
It's the library closing the sidewalk.
Yeah, those go through a great deal of talk between the all town departments before it was decided how to do it. So leaving it with the town manager would work the best, I would think.
Or with this committee instead of it going to the council. So I think you're saying, Guilford.
Well,
I think,
yes, it was a TPC. Sorry.
yeah. So there's some, I'll give you an example. There's some talk of a artisans market taking up some of the space in front of the town hall. Is that something that if they go on longer than 14 days, would that something that would come to the council? You want that to go to the council, it sounds like what you're saying in this.
Yes, that's the way this reads.
That's the way it's read, yeah.
I'm not convinced of that, but that's the way it reads.
Mhm.
And as Bob has pointed out, that Bob?
Well, yeah, I didn't really lower my hand, but yeah,
Okay.
I think we felt that the council should retain this authority, but it sounds like the town staff basically provide a recommendation after careful deliberation. So I certainly don't think the council needs to weigh in on that particular piece.
So she has language that originally she proposed that I don't have in front of me at the moment, unfortunately. It's not very complicated. That would revert this back to simply it gets referred to TPC for their decision, and then they just make a report to the council. And we could leave this the way it is and wrestle with it at council. We could change it again back to just let TPC handle it, which Councilor Haneke supported and I support. And sounds like Paul and Guilford feel like that would probably be a simpler or more less cumbersome approach. I don't know how people feel. Do they want to leave it as is and let the council decide? Do they want to make a change again? Back to TPC handles it. Bob?
I think we should make the change in this document rather than leave it up to a conversation with the council. I mean, I agree that, I mean, we already have a system in place. It's working. Let's not break it.
So the language, and again, I don't have her language in front of me. I'm afraid maybe I could find it. Uh, yeah, I do have her language. Let's see if we can make the change and then look at it. So the town council delegates to the TPC authority to review and act. So that it would be authority to review and act on all requests under this paragraph following, then, right, the rest following consultation with and then comma with a well, actually it wouldn't be a monthly report. Well, since it is a long-term, that's so the language reads with a monthly report to the town council
And where does that go?
at the very end. So after regulations, there would be a comma rather than a period, with a monthly report to the town council of all requests and approvals.
Of all
Requests
requests
and approvals.
requests and approval requests?
And approvals, that's what she has here. So it should be with a monthly report to the town council of all requests and approval. And then strike the rest of it, yes, thank you.
I think we should have it just all requests, because I would want to see requests that were denied and some rationale for it.
So
All requests, just
it's
strike
all
and
requests and
approvals.
approvals.
Just strike and approvals.
Okay. But don't you want to know if they've been approved or not?
Yeah, I want to know whether they were approved or rejected. I mean, whatever.
So
So
You basically
you-
want to know
comes
what
up.
they considered, what came
Right.
before
So
them.
you're gonna have all the requests, and then you're gonna see which ones of those requests were
Right,
approved.
let's leave it
Right.
as it is, fine.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to then revert to this language, and if we'll see what happens at council. So we're going to adopt Councilor Haneke's suggestion.
Okay.
All right, how are we doing on time? Well, we got 30 minutes. I'm afraid the toughest one is yet to come, but it's the only other one. So the other change, and stop me if I'm jumping too fast here, but the other change is 3G, my favorite section of this document. And a fair amount of this is based on suggestions that Guilford provided to us. And if he's still with us and he hasn't dozed off again, I can't see why he's riveted by this, but so this is probably has the most changes in it. Let's see what people think. It's still divided between A and B. It still does have TPC with authority in some areas and town council with authority in others. So let's see what it looks like. So this is G. All permanent changes to roads or sidewalks, such as the placement of utility structures, as we know, to be determined, comma, bus stop additions or deletions, comma, crosswalk placement, street lighting, speed or truck limits, traffic calming measures, and then specified things like RRFBs, driver feedback signs, meaning roundabouts, raised crosswalks, splitter islands, etc., and street amenities, defined further as bus shelters, benches, electric vehicle and other charging stations, bike share stations, trash cans, my personal favorite, and comma bike racks, etc. And that's the end of that section. So all these, for the moment, the town council delegates to TPC the authority to review and act upon such changes under this paragraph, subject to funding. And I believe here, Councilor Haneke would also like a report back. So if they go ahead and, if this stands the way it stands, and they go ahead and do something, we would like to know that. And right now, the only requirement is an annual report. So unless we specify it more specifically. So here, the thought is, do we wish also to then, and with a report back to the council?
I think Guilford has raised his hand.
Yes, Guilford, please.
So this is also where I would put in the school zones and the safety zones, which I sent. I
Yeah.
forgot
Thank you.
yesterday.
Okay. So if you, right, Paul, if you can just find a place to put that in. Would that be under what category, Guilford? Or would it be
They
separate? Yeah,
they could be separate, or actually I would make them separate.
good. So up at the top, bus stop additions or deletions, crosswalk placement, street lighting, speeder truck limits. Then I'd insert it there before traffic calming. If my suggestion between speeder truck limits and traffic calming, school zones, safety zones, and then we have this category called traffic calming, and this category called, what do we call it? Street amenities.
Can we add under the traffic calming measures speed humps, because that's probably the most frequent thing that's going to come to you? Is that the appropriate place? Because you've got the
Yes,
Yeah.
speed humps, raised crosswalks, raised intersections. Those fall under traffic calming.
So
okay,
there's, so under traffic calming, okay,
and do we call them humps or bumps?
They're officially called humps.
Okay, because that would mean like what do they call it, the platforms or something like that, raised tables and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's raised intersections,
But
raised.
it's all those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
so speed humps and the other was, I'm sorry, Guilford, was,
There's raised crosswalks and raised intersections.
you've got that. We got raised crosswalks, we've got speed humps, splitter islands. Guilford, would those be put in a situation where it's not necessarily a major roadway change? It just might be I mean, like I could see a speed hump's not a major roadway change, but we have a section that sets any major roadway or sidewalk redesign goes to the council. Can you imagine situations where a splitter island could possibly be put in that's not a major roadway or sidewalk redesign?
There's a possibility. It's very slim, but there is a possibility you could do that. So that's why I kind of put it here. But then
Okay.
if it's part of a major design, it would just fall in the major design as well. So it wouldn't be
Right.
pulled out, just
Right. Okay.
wouldn't be pulled out separately. I'd assume.
Okay. Uh, okay, good. So A has obviously gotten more complicated, but hopefully more helpful both to the commission and to the public and also hopefully staff. I don't see a way we can just, I mean, we could just say this is way too specific and just have it very broad, but I think we're headed in a direction of trying to be as specific as possible.
Oh, and did you want me to put with report back?
Yeah,
Yes.
Here,
I think we do need that with report back to
is
the,
this where you want it to go?
after
Yeah.
subject to funding
Right.
with a report at the very end, with a report back to the council.
Monthly? What do we
Uh,
see?
No, these are specific events. So the monthly was with long-term but not permanent changes. So at least in theory, I think the council wanted just to hear like every month what's going on. I'm not sure the commission's actually going to be able to do that. I mean, you do that, but that's something that you used to and you handle
just-
fine.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll just mimic this language.
Yeah, with a remote, that would be, yes, that would be the way to do it, with a report back to the council, right? Well, Paul, the thought though is that because these are very
Periodic.
specific,
Mhm.
yeah, I would not have a month, I would just with a report to the council of all requests and approvals. I'd take out monthly for this one.
Okay.
In all honesty, I'm not sure how they're gonna do a monthly report for some of these other things, but, because they only meet anyway, but
I mean, couldn't it be part of the town manager's report to the council, like one of the reports a month?
That's what I do already. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he already does
I
that.
just try to
So,
incorporate it in
Right,
that,
that's
yeah.
what I'm just saying. I don't, maybe it needs, if you want to codify it, be here, but it doesn't have to be necessarily more detailed than that.
Right. But the committee may say they want to do their own report or something
Right.
like that. So,
Right.
but
Okay. So that's
thinking-
A. And the current language is that it goes to TPC. Now, we don't talk about it now necessarily, but Councilor Haneke does not like having speed humps and other road changes to road surface under the control of TPC. She wants it to come back to the council. So that's, we can maybe talk about that if we have time today, but I'll express that concern for that. But we at the moment are saying it all goes to TPC. And then B, council retains its authority as keeper of the public way, provided, however, that prior to council action, TPC shall hold a public right, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But up above it says, this is a change. Guilford maybe can speak to this. We had all major roadway and sidewalk redesigns. Guilford suggested that we should have intersection control also go to the council, and that's traffic lights and roundabouts. And so that's a change. And I have questions about that, and maybe Jennifer does too. So Jennifer, please.
No, I'm sorry, that's residual hand up.
Do you want, okay, I'm sorry, okay. So Guilford, help me understand why you think traffic lights, I mean, roundabouts to my mind would be part of a major roadway redesign. So that's already covered. It seems to me.
I just kind of called it out just so people understood that
Right.
it's a
Right.
major project. It's not a small project, that if we put in a traffic light or take out a traffic light, if we put in a roundabout, I didn't want people to think we would do that and not call it a major project.
can I pose a
Mm.
question? So Guilford, so North Amherst intersection, you're putting in a new smart traffic light. Does that go to the council? Or is that something that's already there? You would just be upgrading it?
That's just maintenance. So if we
Yeah.
had, so if we decided to put a traffic light at the corner of, wow, can't think of one.
How about Amity and Sunset? No, Amity and Lincoln.
Dana,
If we
No.
decide to put a traffic light or a roundabout there, that would be a big project and that would have to be approved by the council.
Huh. So it's intersection control.
And it also separated out the stop signs and yield signs, which are above. And if you go back up, those were in the part above.
Is that town manager? All that goes to town manager.
Correct. So it separated the two.
Right.
so everything on Southeast Street in front of the Fort River School, that comes to the council, the full council. If you want to put if you're anticipating a new roundabout at Potwine, if you're looking at the new roundabout at Amity, all those would be, if you just say, oh, we want to do a roundabout up in North Amherst, those would all be council decisions.
Right. And then if someone wanted stop signs or yield signs on the South Amherst Common, that would be a town manager decision.
And with TPC input? No, according to this document, it just goes to Paul and Paul makes the call.
Yes.
Yeah, those yield signs and stuff.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
again, we talked about all the requests would come in through a central spot and then get divided out.
But I think you raise an interesting question, George. Is that, so if there is a a roundabout proposed at, say, Potwine and West Street, does that come to this committee at all, or does it go straight to the council? Oh, it said,
It's
so, but
No.
it says it has TPC holds a public hearing.
Yes.
right.
Yes.
And
Okay.
makes a recommendation. to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
council.
okay, good, good. I missed that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that the goal is to get the TPC to make the recommendations
Yeah,
and
agreed.
move TSO out of that business. And it gets back to, I think, a question, what do we gain by this? Because it is involving staff time serving on this commission, but the gain is that the staff does not have to spend multiple hours presenting to multiple committees. And that was why
Yeah,
we went to
I mean,
get.
yeah, just to add to that, Andy, I think, I appreciate Councilor Haneke's concerns about the staff time, but most of the staff are showing up at all these meetings anyway.
Right.
So, this seems to make it a little more efficient.
So Bob,
Yeah, I don't see in here, and maybe I missed it, where we sort of recommend to the town council that if there is a recommendation that comes to the council from the TPC, they just vote it up or down. They don't refer it to committee. Because then we're just back in the same old loop.
so Bob, is this the concern about then things getting, say, sent to TSO and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So, the TPC holds a public hearing, makes a recommendation, it comes to the council, and then we say, oh, well, we're going to refer it to TSO.
Bob, I just don't see how we can tell the council what it can or cannot do.
No, I know. That's what I
Yeah.
said, recommendation to the council. but
Right.
do not do that. We make a recommendation. I don't
In
know.
our report, yes. In our
Okay,
report,
that's
yes,
not in
but I
the
don't
town-
think we can put it in here.
Okay,
That's just I don't know what others think, but I think this is not that kind of document. In the report, we could plead and beg and entreat, but we can't really say in this document, and you shall not refer it to another committee.
no, I wasn't suggesting.
No, I
we
know,
still- yeah.
I know. But we want to make sure it's in the report, absolutely.
Okay,
I think we said that in our
I
prior.
think you have, Andy. but
I
we can
think it is
highlight
in there, yeah.
Yeah, but we can highlight it, we
we-
can bring it out in our discussion.
That it was a
Yeah.
recommendation that GOL consider a rules change on the subject. But it would require a rules change that's why it has to go to GOL.
okay.
Okay. Well, I want to go back just briefly and then I think we're done, I think. But just be clear on this, all major roadway and sidewalk redesigns, comma, intersection control. Is everybody happy with that, okay with that? They think it's clear enough? Traffic lights and roundabouts. Because again, my thought was roundabouts are already included in major roadway, but Guilford's point is I want to just draw it out. I want to make it clear. We do have, I believe, up above do we have many roundabouts up above? Or do
We
take
do in traffic
do.
calming.
It's under traffic calming and that we're making that distinction, which seems appropriate to me. So maybe we just leave this language as it is. And if GOL has a problem or councilors have a problem, they can raise it. Okay.
Yeah, no, one of the examples I was thinking about with this that I'll just throw out quickly wasn't an installation, it was a removal of a traffic light. And that was East Pleasant and Fearing. There used to be a traffic light there, right? And that was removed.
Wait. East Pleasant or North Pleasant?
North Pleasant, I'm sorry,
Right.
North Pleasant, Fearing. Guilford, you recall that?
The one at Fearing,
Yeah,
not
there was a traffic light there. There was a decision to remove it,
yes.
and that constitutes a major intersection control decision.
Yes, and that would come to you guys. It would come to the council after TPC reviewed it.
So I just wanted to throw in that example.
So I had one concern, minor concern, if we could scroll up just for a second, still staying in this section, but under the list of traffic calming measures, we have driver feedback signs. And I immediately thought of like Chief Ting, here's a concern of a particular area, and he wants to put in a driver, I assume these are what we mean by these, the sort of signs that, show speed. Is that what we're thinking of, that kind of sign? You
We
know,
are. I mean, if you wanted to put permanent driver feedback signs in there, that would take care of Chief Ting using his trailer wherever he wanted to move it around to.
yeah, we don't want him to have to come to TPC to do this, right? I mean,
Right.
right? So would there ever be do we have any permanent driver's feedback signs?
We
Yeah.
do. We have about 4.
Really? Okay. So we should have the word permanent.
And there's going to be, with the changes that were approved to the school zones, there'll be driver feedback signs there, but those were already approved, those changes.
And they're
There's one on
permanent.
Amity Street, George.
Yeah, I know, but is it permanent?
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's one
All
that's
right, that shows you
permanent there.
that shows you where I'm at. So, do we want to insert the word permanent? Because I mean, I'm not sure anyone would really pay that much attention, but technically it would mean that if Chief Ting wanted to put up a feedback sign, he'd have to go to TPC to do it.
Yeah. So I
Um,
added permanent, if that's
thank
okay.
you.
I think we should, put a permanent here.
Yeah. And then for some reason I highlighted trash cans. Maybe that's because it's my personal. But so if I have a trash can issue, instead of sending it to Guilford and being ignored, I can go to TPC and
Be
raise
ignored.
that. Is that correct? Is that what this document says?
If it's in the public way,
I've even sent pictures. I sent pictures and pictures of trash. And I said, please put a trash can here, and complete silence, complete silence.
No,
so there is,
Just kidding.
there's 2 issues with trash cans. One is the amenity, and if it obstructs, all the sort of pedestrian things you'd look at. But then there's also the sort of emptying of it. Do we have are we adding more? Is it within the framework of how we already collect trash and the labor that goes along with every additional trash can?
I appreciate that, but anyway, so maybe I'm just going to put my own trash cans around. Is that possible?
there are people who do put their own trash cans above.
Anyway,
But
so
we do get a fair number of requests for that.
so I'm not the only one.
Nope.
No.
Do they provide pictures along with, no, they probably don't.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Oh,
they
they
do.
do?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm now watching the time, actually.
I'm sorry. Yes, we
Because,
do.
the one thing that we didn't do is thoroughly go through Counselor Shane's comments.
Did we do that?
I think that we've probably handled some of them already because they duplicated others. There were some issues that she raised. I just wanted to point that out
Thank you.
before we say that this is ready to close, because I think the meeting is ready to close. We're getting to 12. But we do want to get this along. Part of her issue was she would like to make getting into the question of setting priorities, which was her first point. Struck me that that's the responsibility of the commission to set priorities, and if it decides that it gets something that's referred to it that's a low priority, it ought to make that decision, and it ought to be informing people of what the priorities are. But we don't want to take that. That's ministerial function of the committee.
Yes.
So I guess that's what I would respond to that one. But she has a lot of other issues having to do with costs, and
I think these to be raised at council, Andy. I don't think we have, I mean, I can speak for myself. I looked through the list and some of them we touched on. Others, I think, are things we'd have to discuss at council. I don't have any thoughts on that at the moment. For instance, what impact does this have on TSO? Counselor Haneke had suggested maybe TSO could be reduced to 3 members. I mean, that's for later, but that's,
I
Board
think
agree-
GOL needs to make that recommendation about council composition. I frankly wonder as whether TSO ought to be merged into another committee is a consideration, but that's not something we have to discuss.
correct.
So I think,
I think we covered her stuff pretty much.
yeah, I think that I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledged that, and it took a moment to look at the list. Is there anything else? Or are we ready for a motion to, and as far as process is concerned, we're not referring to, we don't have the authority to refer to another committee. We are making a recommendation that these be referred, and that's a council action.
I guess Athena's not here, but I get the feeling these are like automatic now. It's like the council doesn't actually even vote on this. The council president just sends it to GOL.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think
it's
it
just
gets
automatic.
referred. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I would like to make a motion that
Okay.
we approve this document as amended and ask that it be sent to GOL.
Second,
Motion is made and seconded and discussed a long time, but is there anything else? If there are no hands going up, we'll proceed to a vote. And Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Councilor Lord,
Aye.
Jennifer,
yes.
and I'm a yes, so it's unanimous. So with that, I want to thank everybody who's been involved, Guilford, Paul, George in particular, because 3 of them have spent a lot of time on going over this, and I hope that we are moving in the right direction. I feel that we really are. I appreciated their bringing this to us, and so I think we're ready to move on. Councilor Ryan, you have something that
Just very quickly, I'm sorry, just a process question really for Paul and for Athena, but she's not here. Just, I should reach out to them or they will reach out to me just to make sure that the document that goes to GOL, just I could see it.
Yeah,
And
I can send it to you. I can send it to all members of the committee
Fine.
when I'm sending it to Athena.
and if there's any last minute changes, we can, I
Mhm.
assume committee members will have no problem with any kind of Scrivener errors or, that kind of thing. No policy changes will be made. We're not going to delete anything,
No
but
power of the
just-
pen. Yeah.
right, exactly, right. So if people are okay with that, thank you.
okay. So having noted that,
Andy, I have just a quick concern. Does the policy document refer to the TPC as the single point of contact for all? I mean, do we need to put that in the policy, or is that because it's in the charge? We don't need to address that. I don't know. But
Bob,
if,
the policy defines the powers that the council is delegating to it, and that's it. I think that kind of language, if it goes anywhere, would either go in the charge
okay,
or would be in the report. I'm not sure it would be in the policy document.
yeah, that's
My
fine.
initial sort of thought.
That I was asking the question. That's all.
Where is it? Yeah, where is
Yeah.
that language? And yeah,
It's in the
it's
the
stated in
charge.
the charge. Okay.
It's just I didn't see it in the policy, that's the only question I had. Do we
Yeah, I
need-
felt that
we're
that
not
was.
just thinking
yeah.
about that too, because there's the next step is to how this gets implemented. And I've several times cited to the Northampton process of establishing a form that people fill out when they're making requests, and based upon the experience of our neighboring city to the west, they, if counselors have a resident who says, I have an issue with my street and I'd like to have speed bumps put in, they just, counselors say, oh, great idea, but what you need to do is fill out this form so it can be taken up by the TPC. And that's about all that they do. And hopefully we will move our council and our staff in that direction, that anytime somebody calls with a request, that it get plugged into that kind of a system.
Mhm.
But it's up to it'll be up to the
Right. So,
TPC to create it, because it's their it's their process.
Yeah. Okay.
So the only other thing that I wanted to just mention really quickly in this next meeting, and what my proposal is, and I'm going to, so because of the Juneteenth meeting, we ended up postponing, and I think that we now don't have a meeting until, I believe we created a special meeting on June 26th, or it was
mhm.
the last Thursday. That what I do is ask the fire chief, PVTA representatives. I'll work with staff to figure out who all to do, but there's who have some concerns about, may have some observations about Heatherstone Road. And I did actually get something from USA Waste already, because of Stan Rosenberg got a conversation with me about his favorite topic. What are we doing with the trash hauler?
Waste hauler, yeah.
Waste hauler, which we'll get back to at a future date. But and he ended up asking the people already from USA Waste, and they said they have not had any problems dealing with it, though they are running, the trucks do have to run over the bumps themselves. But Guilford had said at the beginning that that was intended. So USA Waste did not have a problem, but I would like to make sure that we ask them to the June 26th meeting, them being, including the fire department, PVTA, and school bus drivers, so that anybody who has large vehicles we know that drive through there has an opportunity, and that we make that the major focus of our next meeting, so we can just get this done. Is that okay? All right.
Paul
Anything
has
else?
his hand up.
So Andy, I'm just concerned about inviting all these people, bus drivers and stuff. Would it make sense for us to, or you to write to the entities and say, give us feedback or something? I
No.
mean,
Oh,
asking,
that's all I was thinking of.
okay,
And it's just essentially what USA Waste did.
so school bus, trash, PVTA, fire, those are the major drivers you're thinking?
Yeah,
Okay,
because there's I don't
just
know.
to ask their experience with those speed hump, the traffic calming measures there, if they've had any issues with it.
What about
Yeah, I mean,
delivery services like
what are the
UPS?
what are the PVTA buses that go through there doing?
Okay, we can ask that. UPS.
Yeah,
Okay,
they have these big vans.
So what's the final product here? Is it a recommendation? Are we actually going to make a
I think
recommendation?
that that when it was adopted for as traffic calming device to satisfy some people, we said that the council would come back and review whether it was successful or as an experiment or not. And I think we asked just people in the neighborhood, if they want to come, and otherwise do the best we can to get feedback, and then we can make a recommendation to the council that it treat this as a permanent and final decision.
So a recommendation either that we think this is working or we think that it isn't working.
I think so, and that
Something along those lines. Either
will
yay,
take-
up, thumbs up or thumbs down based on what the information we've gathered. Okay, all right.
I mean, I just thought of it too, maybe Cerner, because they deliver heating oil and propane into that neighborhood.
Mhm. We could
They
send
have
out to everybody, yeah.
They have
Yeah,
pretty
I mean,
big.
I don't know that we need to get everybody. The
I just thought-
reason that I asked, that I thought about USA Waste is that somebody who regularly drives large trucks through the neighborhood, just to get a sampling.
Right.
Can't get everybody, but if we get a sampling, and it's, but who knows, somebody calls United Van Lines to come and help them move out of their house.
That's different.
We can't get everybody.
And when is your next meeting,
President.
Andy?
I think June 26th.
26.
26.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jennifer has her hand up.
Jennifer?
Oh, I wanted to say, I think I'm really glad that you are circling back, because that's what we told the residents on Heatherstone, that we would do that in a year. So I think that it's great that we're doing it. And on a different matter, but it's still a town service, I got like 3 different residents texted me to say how happy they were with the street sweeper.
At
And
4
then-
a.m.? At 4 a.m.?
No, I guess they were just so happy. These
No,
were-
the one I spoke to was not
Oh,
happy.
no, well, these were
was-
Fearing Street. They were really happy.
I
And
didn't
then
know
the
our
next-
staff worked that early, except for
But-
DPW repairing water
Is
mains.
this
But
going to be
apparently
a
street
regular
sweeper-
thing?
We put a
4
street,
a.m.?
we put a
No,
street
no,
sweeping,
just to have the street sweeper.
so we put a street sweeping schedule out. So we try to do all, after the winter, we do the streets, we try to get all the streets done. And I think I published that's published online, but also in the town manager report. It tells what areas of the street of the town they're trying to hit.
Is it an annual or biannual? Is
But-
there-
It's an annually, I believe, and it's because a lot of sand and stuff gets put down on
'cause
streets.
it didn't happen for a couple of years. Anyway, people were really happy in my,
Anyway,
maybe,
That's
So we
maybe
got-
it wasn't
done
at
a
4
reasonable-
a.m. in
reasonable
District
hour.
4.
Right,
So
right.
we have a new street sweeper, but it does do the downtown area on a more regular basis during early mornings,
I mean, we're talking really early mornings.
4 a.m. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's when there are no cars.
but people are trying to sleep, Paul.
recognizing time.
You can go to Fearing Street anytime.
Uh, So I think we've covered the agendas, and I don't have anything else that's unanticipated. Does anybody else have any other issues? Otherwise, I'll listen for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Has been made. Motion made and seconded. Voting. Mr. Hegner,
Yes.
Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Councilor Lord,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. So we're adjourned. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you all.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.